Okay, we're gonna practice giving her like the biggest applause possible. Starting from this side of the room, go! Give it up for Tracey Birrell! Bless you, my child. Say okay. I wish.
Thank you very much for that warm welcome. Now, I know what you're all thinking. You're looking at me and thinking, this woman has a very tough life. And that's what qualifies me to talk about privilege. That's something, a topic that's been talked about a lot lately. And I was speaking with a girlfriend of mine who immigrated from Vietnam to Australia. And somehow it came up that I don't like mashed potato. And she said to me, well, that's really strange. I thought that was a very popular food in your culture and that everybody loved mashed potato. And so I said to her, well, when I was 5 years old, my mother would make me eat all my mashed potato and I couldn't leave the table until I did. And it used to get cold and, really chunky and awful, and I'd be sitting there gagging on it. And I said, anyway, as a consequence of that, since then, I don't eat any mashed foods. That's it. They just turn my stomach. And she said to me, well, that makes sense. I think I know what you mean. When I was 5 years old, we were in the middle of a famine after the American War. Of course they call it the American War. Why wouldn't they? I had never thought of that before. We were in a famine after the American War and we were starving, and my mother used to cook us grass. And I don't eat grass anymore either, so I understand where you're coming from. And it was at that time I realised that I was even more privileged than I realised. And a few years ago I did the ultimate privileged act and had a midlife crisis. Now I say it's a privilege because really you have to have a lot of privilege to even to be eligible to have a midlife crisis. I guarantee you that in South Sudan, journalists are not writing pieces entitled 10 signs that you might be encountering a midlife crisis. That is not the top of their headlines. And if they were writing those articles, you know who they'd be targeted at? 28-year-olds, because that's half their average life expectancy. Yeah, I know, it's a bit dark, isn't it? So, there are a couple of things about my own midlife crisis that I'm very proud about. The first is that it was bang on time. My 4 grandparents' median age of death is 94, so I'm counting on getting through to 94. 47 is half of that. That's exactly when it hit me. There's something to be said for timeliness, I think. So that was the first thing that was good about my midlife crisis. The second thing I'm proud about is that I midlife crisised like an absolute champion. I went the whole hog. I did not get a convertible, but I'm not a man. So I think that's acceptable to have done it my own way. My marriage ended, and I confess I thought that as a moderately overweight and fairly average 47-year-old that online dating would not be kind to me. Well, let me tell you, I was very, very wrong. For all the women over 35 who've been off the market for a decade or so, there's been things happening while we've been busily partnered. The young men of Australia have been consuming voracious quantities of porn. And do you know what the number one search term is in Australia for porn? MILF. I got on Tinder and I swear I was swiping so crazily I got RSI. I was having a blast. I was having the time of my life. And I did a bit of, let's call it dating for a while. And then I wrapped up my midlife crisis by becoming engaged to a man who's 17 years my junior. I know, go me. And at that point I thought, okay, there's a bit of an age gap here, at the moment this is okay, but I'm going to have to really up my relationship skills to keep this thing moving along happily. And so I've been spending a lot of time listening to a podcast by Dan Savage. He's from Seattle. He's quite famous. He does sex and relationships advice. And I've been listening to it a lot. And one thing I've learned from listening to callers seeking Dan's advice is that people will do anything to improve their interpersonal relationships. Well, anything except say what they want or how they feel. This is apparently just way too far to go. So people will ring up and tell Dan, who's a complete stranger, in intimate detail exactly what they want from their relationship, in what way they're not getting it, and how sad it makes them. Got it. So imagine if we treated shopping the same way that most people seem to treat their relationships. You go up to the Coles deli and they ask, what do you want? You really want bratwurst, but you just, for whatever reason, you don't feel you can say that. So they give you feta cheese. You hate feta cheese, but you walk away and you're like, well, I guess I got the feta cheese. You come back the next week and the person behind the counter says, hey, how did you like that feta cheese I gave you last week? Well, you hated it, but now you feel bad because you said they could give you whatever you want, and they gave you feta cheese. And you say, great, yeah, it was great. And they say, what do you want today? Whatever you think is good, and you get feta cheese again. A new one's come in that the person behind the counter thinks will be even better than the last one. So the message that I want straight men to get from this little story about going to the deli is that if you want your female partner to put on a strap-on dildo, I'd like that take you to have them, duct tape, and peg you with it, you're going to have to use your words and ask for it. Very occasionally you'll find a woman who offers it unsolicited, but that's unlikely. So the lesson is, in relationships and at the deli, if you don't ask for the sausage, you're not going to get it.
Tracey Birrell, everybody! Absolutely amazing. That was only her second time. Give it up for Tracey again! Yes! Only a second time, but I have already learned something about pegging. Use my words. All right, you